Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Sayyidina Muhammad. In the name of Allah, the All Merciful, the Most Merciful. So we are continuing the videos on the fundamentals in the apparent section, and in this chapter, the ayah and beliefs. So after reviewing direct and indirect observations, we are going to focus on transmissions, which is what we it's all the statement we receive from other agents. So we're going to start to define them, investigate the situation, what is actually happening, and relate that to the anti-human life model, since we have multiple agents involved. And following that, we're going to see how we can verify such a transmission and its limits with respect to strong truths that we defined. So here we are in the ideal belief acquisition and use process. We are still in the sources and in transmission here, and inshallah we're going to cover the whole thing, the whole process. What is a transmission? It is defined here in this channel as a believed witnessing of the life of another agent, and this other agent may be interacting with a third-party agent or group of agents. So here we have three parties: the witness, the one that is learning; the source agent, the one that is giving his knowledge, showing how to do things; and finally an eventual potential third party, which is the audience. So here it may be the people for whom the source is talking to or is showing his knowledge. And just as an example, a parent is a prominent source agent for his witnessing kid. So why would we care about other agents? Why don't we just focus on observation? It's like there are multiple reasons for this. The first is we all start our life in a very dependent state, where we simply, as a child, almost copy everything we know from our parents and our acquaintances. There is also the other agents are also heavily involved in pleasure and pain and capacities, in processes, in community pleasures, so that they play a significant role in learning things. Even if we wanted to focus only on observations, we wouldn't have time to do them all. A single person can't study, can't go and observe everything around, redo the entire history of science, scientific experiments within his childhood, just to be able to learn and live his life. That would take way too long. And next reason is even if we had time, we don't have the capacity to do so. The fields right now in the 21st century, in the 15th century Algerian, the space of knowledge, acquired knowledge, is way too large. We have various expertises, and one cannot just spend one doesn't have enough time to get the insight, to get the detailed insight in each of the fields. And finally, the last reason is next chapters on base behaviors, where people are also heavily involved in some of the strongest base behaviors, in particular reproduction. So here, to clarify, we mentioned sources and audiences. Their definition is a bit more subtle. So here, the sources are agent directly reaching audience's perception, willingly or not. So if you happen to come across somebody doing something, that person, by being witness, that person becomes a source. So it's not necessarily they are not always anticipated. They are not always willingly a source. And the second group of sources, it's agents believed to be behaving in a specific way, believed to have done an action. It's sufficient to have the belief. It doesn't necessarily need to happen. So direct exposition here is pretty obvious. If you see a person doing something, you learn about him. For example, a person making an action. And here I also I also involve not just speech, but also movement. All solutions you do in your everyday life are also transmission. It's not necessarily just communication. It's very important. You can also infer something happened by logic. For example, if a situation leaving clues that some event happened and is related to somebody. For example, if you see trash everywhere, somewhere in some place, you know that some people have done that, since trash is a very much non-natural thing. Next is illusion. So here it's really the case where you think you've seen something happening, but it didn't actually happen. Just for example, somebody waving at you, you think it waves at you, so you infer that maybe he's an acquaintance, while in reality he was waving at somebody else. So that source, even an illusion can become source. And finally, opportunities and risks that an agent is taking is also considered as sources. For example, if somebody is driving way too fast, he's a source. Like you can consider him a source. Like the person is taking risk, you can infer that he's taking risk while driving, taking risk of injuring somebody. So that's for the source, and the same applies, kind of the mirror applies for the audiences. So it's agents that are directly exposed to source agents, willingly or not. So people that happen to be exposed to the learned event. And also, same way, agents believed to be exposed to sources, behavior, direct exposition, logic inference, illusion as well, and opportunities and risk. For example, here we can give a single example for a politician. You have many, when he talks here, you have many sources. The voters, of course, his own party, he's gonna stick to his party's positions. The opposition parties, he wants to make sure nothing he says makes him vulnerable to the opposition critics. But here there are also hidden audiences that you may not think about. So any specific third party for which agreements were made, if that politician made an agreement for a specific with a specific company, organizations, typically lobbyism, he will adapt his speech to this, and you're not aware of that audience, yet it will impact the content of that transmission, which is what we care about. Of course, judges want to make sure he remains legal, but it may also be family or even future generations studying history or looking for justice if things went wrong. So the list of audience very quickly extends, and a transmission is really a complex event. So what are we trying to do here? We are trying to build strongly true beliefs, and for transmission here we have added an agent between the statement and the witness. And to make sure it's a strong true, we have an additional step to perform, like assuming the source has a strong truth. Is he actually acting upon it, sharing it? So here there is a degree of freedom where an agent can do something else that will hide the true transmission that he should show. So if he's showing that strong truth, we call that alignment. Otherwise, we call that misalignment. And then us as a witness, us as a learner, as people who wants to build that new belief, we have to respond to this. Either we accept or reject that belief transmission. So with these two decisions, we have 4 cases. The first one, the source is aligned and we accept it. This one, for example, your friend tells you that the bus is 30 minutes late. Since it's your friend, you trust him, you decide to start working at home or wait for 30 minutes, and then on arriving at the bus station, you get the bus and you resume your normal day. So here you accepted to believe that this bus was 30 minutes late, and you enjoyed the benefit from it because it was true, it was aligned. The second case, which is also nice, is misalignment rejected. For example, if your neighbor tells you to hold resources as there is a great storm in 2 weeks, but you don't buy anything, as you know that weather predictions for 14 days are really not accurate, and the fact that 2 weeks later you go out and see a great sunny day. So here you're lucky that you haven't wasted the effort to buy resources and rejected that transmission. So that's the second good case. Now there are the two other cases that are more tricky. They are the ones that we want to avoid. So if the transmission is, if the source is aligned but you reject it, here for example your coworker that you don't like tells you that there is a mistake in your work, but you ignore him because you believe he's just annoying you. But later your boss blames you for that same mistake. So here you wish you would have aligned, you wish you had accepted the alignment. The second case is the opposite. You reject, like you accept something that is wrong. For example, your brother tells you great compliments about your new business ideas, not to offend you with the truth. So you decide to believe him and go on with the business, invest the capital, and after implementing it, it fails miserably and you have big losses on you. And later on, he tells you that actually, yeah, he tell you, he kind of show you that he actually knew the truth here. So here you would have loved to get the truth instead, even if it was critic at the even if it was a critic at first place. So that's the two bad cases that we want to avoid. So that's what we call verify the transmission, accept alignment or rejecting misalignment. So before we get to that, we need to clarify a bit what is exactly happening in a transmission, and it's not that easy. So here I showed a graph here where you have the source on the left and anything related to it, his mind, his deliberate action and speech, and anything that is related to him, his appearance, his level of education, his salary, his anything you want here. And the same with the audience, his mind, action, speech, and audience related event. So what happens is in a transmission you arrive at a given time to assess like if something is true or not, but there's a long history that matters to be able to decide on this truth. In particular, you have I've noted 5 type of actions that occurs in the course of a relationship between source and agents. You have a step of audience selection, and we're going to go over them later. Audience selection, a step of, so here from all the people you can talk to, the source can talk to, he decided, or the situation made it that he talks to that specific audience. There's a lot of things can happen here. Same source selection, the audience is listening to a specific person. Transmission selection, so here just what you care about in life. When you look around you, you have so many things you can learn from. What you select is also a lot of things are happening when you decide to select something and not something else. Then comes a step of independent transmission review. So here it's really forget the entire when you have a transmission, you forget the entire context. You just focus on the statement itself. Is it worth? Is it true? Is it by itself alone? Is it worth it or not? So there's this step where you just judge things. And finally, once you have a source, once you have an agent and you can't verify independently, that's why you're gonna have to judge the other person, to try consider the step of consideration, where you try to anticipate what the source is doing, and the source also is anticipating what the audience is expecting, so that you can try to figure out where is the like, is it going to be an aligned statement or not. And finally, of course, the environment of each agent is also playing a role. Just who you meet every day, who you like, all the events, all the weather that makes people meet or not meet during the course of days will also play a role in the transmissions. If you are in the same, for example, if you are in a location, it's highly likely that you will meet your neighbors, but not people that are far away. Just this already brings a lot of trouble brings a lot of biases to the transmission, and we're going to go over this. So all these events, they happen continuously. There's really no order here. For example, if somebody tells you something, but it's only 10 years later when you are doing something related to that statement that you start to consider that person as a source. So really, the order is there's no order here. So what we do is basically get a frozen picture at a given time and see if we can get that get to validate that transmission event or not. As shown, there are here three parties, and they are all agents. And agents, most importantly here for us, is humans. And as mentioned at the introduction of this channel, a human life is complex, and we need to account for all the things that may happen in order to try and verify this transmission. Just to recap on human life model, the life is a succession of situations from birth to death, where in a single situation we are called to action. Before that action, we want to select the pleasure and pain that we target. So we will review them now: the sensation, the emotion, the ego, communities, intermediaries. We used various set of capacities. We'll review the part of them, and we'll review like body, resource, systems, and processes. But next, we'll review also the pleasure and pain and Aya once the beliefs are finished. Then we assess our beliefs, what is more likely to happen, which capacity is connected to which pleasure, so that I can reach my goal. And finally, the next as well will be base behavior. So here it's everything that we don't control and that we have to play with, we have to account for in our life. So the survival, reproduction, reason, and so on. We'll see that in more detail, but here we, as a transmission takes into account the whole life of a person, we have no other, like it's what here is what we call typically recursiveness. Like you can't finish transmission unless you cover the whole life model. So we're gonna do this like we cover transmission. Here it will be light on all these steps that we haven't done, but later we'll detail them, and you can come back later on transmission to see that to have the complete checklist typically to verify that statement. Then comes satisfaction. So here it's more like a long-term goal in life, purpose of life, religion. That's why we also introduce the good evil characterization and the judgment. Then once you have kind of made up your mind, you make a decision, and that decision can be also characterized by few elements: the intent, the attachment, the motivation you have, the justification you give for it, and so on. Here I put a step of problem solving. Is even the same intent, the same goal can be done in various ways. So here there is a chapter on problem solving and how to reach a given goal, how to select an action among the range of possible things, and then comes the action itself, and the action has a lot of related events, which are the efforts you spend for it, the consequences, the illusions you might generate, the opportunities and risk, and so on. Once you have done the action and the consequences have occurred, you are in a new single action situation, and it goes on until death. So here in transmission, we have at least three agents, so it's going to get even more complicated. So you have the source. For each event consideration of the source agent, you have to consider what was the driving force behind the decision of that source agent. So all the categories again. And then for the audience, same here. For each event consideration, and for each audience, there may be a lot of audience as mentioned in the definition, and the witness you can also be involved in the events as well. So here you are treated as an audience if the witness is anticipated by the source. So same here, the whole life model. And the goal is for the witness, and here is only the ayah and beliefs that matters, since we only want to verify if that source, if that transmission event extracted from the event is true or not. And it's even more complicated because a lot of the things are actually hidden. You don't see them unless the person do an action to tell you what he's thinking, what he's doing. And even the actions themselves, not all of them are you don't see you don't see everything people do in their life. They may hide things as well. So all this makes the whole transmission really complicated thing to validate. And this arrow here, potential interactions, we're going to see it is all the consideration, all the ways they can anticipate each other that may also further increase the complexity. So here I just note here person to statement. So basically the transmission is you have at least one life model complexity and one belief acquisition complexity in the simplest case, where you have no audience, a person acting on his own. And this will get worse as more events are considered by the source, more speech, more argument, more actions, as well as more agents are in the audience. You have to adapt to all of them. And after transmission, you have transmission of a transmission, and the chain of transmission as the chain of transmission extends, it gets even harder to even hope to get that strong truth through transmission. So how are we going to do it? So we're going to cover these steps that occurs in the life in the transmission situation. That is to say, the transmission selection. If you remember, there are three arrows, independent. So here it's one for each of the actors, for each of the agents. The independent review of the transmission statement, same here, one for each of the agents. A selection of the source by the audience or witness, two arrows. Selection of the audience by the source or witness, same here, 2 arrows, one for the source, one for the witness. And finally, the consideration of the source and the audience, so how they each other consider themselves in order to select their actions. So here the goal is to have the right understanding to accept or reject the transmission at the time of assessment of the transmission. So first, transmission selection. Before even analyzing any transmission, I would say the first question would be to select how did that happen, how was the transmission selected by the witness or by the audience. So it may be there are two cases, either an accidental occurrence or an active selection by the witness or by the source, or by the source, sorry, here it's a mistake. Accidental occurrence, so here we all live in specific places, period of time, and moves across specific trajectory, which means that the people we meet and what we learn, what we have a chance to learn, I would say, is already highly biased with our lifestyle. Just as example, there's no direct transmission from a foreign community with no communication on the internet. Like Amazon tribes, don't know much about them until you go and visit them. At least that's what happened in 17th century. Today with internet, it's a bit different. there's no direct transmission from a worshipper of Ra, which is an Egyptian god of the sun, which is now a dead religion, and like just by being in a living in a specific period of time, we don't have access to specific information. Same, the witness is connected to a non-representative portion of the agents and nature. Prevalence of, for example, prevalence of agents from family, neighbors, education, work, hobbies, processes. All these have a prevailing influence upon a person, rather than the whole world, or rather than people that may actually be even better for you to learn from. And they are like your best teacher may not be in any of them, so that you don't know. Same, prevalence of nature events. You live in a specific place with a local climate, a specific geological history, and same here, it influences what you live through your life. So here the first question is there any other, even when you meet a transmission, when you consider some transmission, is there any other transmission that is likely to question or to be better than the current transmission? If yes, it has to be accounted for, to verify the alignment. Just to take a step back, when there is a statement, just to take a step back, go over the whole world, all that is happening around the world. It may help different communities, different age group, different gender, and so on, so that you get the best, at least the most representative transmission on that transmission itself. So that's the accidental occurrence. The other one is the active selection by witness. So here we have a life model to count, and each life model step may be the prevailing decision to select transmission or not. If you are, for example, interested in a specific pleasure or avoiding a specific pain, you will select those events believed as contributor to past or future pleasure, pain avoidance, and you will only see those events and ignore everything else. Same capacity, you care about what you can do. Select events believed to have the capacity to do targeted action. You don't care about being able to drive a train when you just take the metro. You just focus on what is relevant to you, and this may hide all these steps may hide the true transmission that you are actually looking for, or the strong truth that will be useful to you. And same with with all capacities. You avoid capacity. Here you will somebody that fails capacity, you will naturally avoid to learn from it, while the error can actually be useful to you. Beliefs, if you follow your own beliefs. Here I go into detail just to show the complexity, and just to show the real complexity of the transmission. I know it won't be nice, but it's going to be long, but I think it's necessary to do it just once, and I have a note on it later in the video. We avoid the exploration of the unknown. Typically, base behaviors, we are subjected to the family events, to our own habits, and we avoid anything that is unusual as well. Then comes decision. You select events that matches your own intent and motivation. Of course, this is straightforward. Problem solving, you go for the solutions method. Select events believed to have better problem solving methodology and solution awareness. Just if you want to apply a solution in your business, typically you will go for the most performing solutions within your capacity, but for the same typically cost, you will go for the best solution naturally. In terms of action, select events involving the same target actions. Select the events whose location and time matches own targeted actions. action related event, same here, satisfaction, just for all these, just to show they will immediately bias anything you consider as a learning source. So according to the witness's current situation, in particular in his prevailing life model step, some events are more likely to be selected for transmission than others. So here, to address that issue, just a step back, I'm not going to go too much into detail in the solutions, for me the goal is just to show roughly the complexity, and we're going to go another way to solve the whole problem. A step back is required to check if there are more relevant transmission events to consider. If you have more relevant, you can just stop verifying, stop that considering that whole transmission and focus on that new one. That's for the first step. Just as a note, I've been talking about transmission event, transmission statement here. From a given situation, a candidate statement for a new belief may be extracted from the real events of the transmission, using the same fundamental assumptions on the equivalence of reasoning and communication message that we mentioned earlier. That is to say, events considered within ourselves, we consider the events within ourselves the same way we communicate to each other, and just from an event to a statement, we can. There are three examples here. If a person say the sky is blue, that's the most straightforward case. You can take a statement, the sky is blue. But it can also go through actions only, no speech. For example, if you see people playing basketball and you don't know about basketball, you see people telling the score just after the ball has entered the basket. So from that you can guess transmission statement: the ball must enter the basket for points to be scored. You don't need a single word to be said to learn from that situation this rule of basketball. Then the last case, just another example to show how transmission can be selected. Depends really depends on the agent, the witnessing agent. For example, if a person, Mr. X, say the sky is blue, and Mr. Y is not happy, shows a not happy face, the transmission statement can be the sky is not blue if the witness only cares about the opinion of Mr. Y. So here there's no you choose what you want to care about. You can focus on the person being angry. You can focus on the person talking, or on the person's appearance. You can focus on anything you want and learn that transmission statement and make a transmission statement out of it. So here it's a transmission selection. A lot of things can happen, as I mentioned, and the equivalence between event and statement holds. It can be put, anything you learn can be put into a statement, and this is that statement that we try to verify as strong truth or not. The second step we can do is ignore the source, ignore the agents, just to focus on that transmission statement and analyze it independently of. So here basically it means should the witness believe in it independently of the source, and audience, should the audience believe it independently of the source, and same for the source. So here basically what we're doing is consider this statement as a new candidate statement for belief. That is to say, we need to apply the whole belief acquisition and use process again, but we exclude that transmission. Basically the goal for different sources, seek direct and indirect observations, get other transmission on the same statement, and so on. Here good step will be consistency. Important step will be consistency, which is part of logic in the belief acquisition process. Consistency is critical to help identify questionable transmissions. So here, for that new transmission, you want to redo the whole process again. We haven't even finished it, but we need to do it again. That's another recursiveness. Life is full of it, but we have no choice. So go get all the information, to all the sources, to learn about it, analyze what it really happens, summarize it, memorize it, and use it, adapt it, use it to draw benefits from it. So if the transmission is verified by all the sources, transmission verification can be concluded now with acceptance now. So it's something basically you already know. So there's no point continuing the review. If disproved, the transmission investigation can also be concluded. It's basically something you already know. It's false. The Earth is flat. You're not going to go any further to go see who said that. And the case that we're interested in, the most recurrent case, if other sources are not sufficient, the investigation continues. You need to go rely on the agents and try to know if that person will or will not show that, like, transmit that strong truth he's assumed to have. So another arrow that happens, another event that happens is the selection of the source. Here again, a lot of things can happen, and it may be, so given a transmission event, how was the source selected by the audience witness? So it may be accidental occurrence. So it's really the same case as we mentioned before. So the same paragraph, our environment and network plays a key role in what happens accidentally. It's not that like randomly accidental, or it can be also active selection. So here again, in the life steps, you choose according to what you care about at a given moment in life. You will select agents that will help you deliver a value, that deliver pleasure or pain, agents that are capable, agents that have the stronger beliefs, people that show that they are more committed to their thing, people that show that they are more believing in their own statements. Same base behavior, decision, intents aligned, and so on. Problem solving, you have the best solutions, I guess. Action related event and satisfaction. Even for me, I don't want to go over all of them, but you can put a pause on the video to see all the different cases that may happen. If there are better sources, so here, if there are better sources for the transmission event, the whole transmission may be simply ignored. So here again, same, can stop and go for that new better source. Just as a note, how we can try and get the best source. So here we can to get the best source, we want to have the strongest belief acquisition and use process. So to help each step of that process, you want, for example, for the observation, you want somebody that have the experience, that have extensive experience with that transmission. He has done it multiple times. He has been exposed to it, so that he knows when things may be wrong or when things are true. Same transmission, people that knows other people that can analyze correctly, people that summarize things that have repetitively summarized things correctly, properly. Good, of course, good memory, an adaptation statement, repetitively correctly adapted beliefs, and finally, extensive contribution in the beliefs themselves also will help. If a person has done the thing, has acted upon his beliefs, is better than the one that learns without the action. So here, if there are better sources for the transmission event, the whole transmission may be simply ignored. Just as a note, the historical reliability of an agent is a really great indicator to assess transmission. If somebody is used to say things that are incorrect, you can just ignore that quickly. Then the other way, the other arrow, the other side, so selection of the audience by the source or witness. So here it's a similar pattern. Given a transmission event, how was the audience selected by the source? Same, it can be accidental, and it can also be active selection. So here same logic. So if there are better sources, let me see. If there are better audiences, sorry, here I even copy paste, so really same except a few here, but you understand the principle. So if there are better audience for the transmission, even the whole transmission may be simply ignored. For the audience, you want people that are going to question hardly anything that they are told to, so that you know that the source will have to adapt to this and anticipate that. So here it's the same across all the belief acquisition steps. And if you find a better audience, you may you may ignore the transmission you are reviewing. Then comes the next step, and that's the hardest, and this one we're going to go into more detail because it's a lot of things can happen. Now you have one source, you have one audience, you have one transmission event, but that transmission event has the source still have to decide how he's going to communicate it. So here what happens is the source adapt to the audience and the audience adapt to the source, and you reiterate since the audience adapted, how I will adapt again to even further improve the transmission. So it's like a chess. You anticipate you may you can anticipate the move of the other person, except that we are playing with a life model here. So how are we going to do it here? An adaptation can be analyzed through these steps: gathering related events, so anything related to the situation. Then we try to understand the life model of each agent. From that, we identify the positioning and overlapping values. Typically, when you have the same stake for multiple people, as we'll see, we just briefly then mentioned a note on the range of actions that are possible for a given statement, for a given transmission, and how we apply all the learning, all the understanding to correct the transmission. So first, gathering related events. You want to gather as many historical actions about the source and the agents as possible, in particular communication or that they say. It's not sufficient. You also want to know about anything related to them, just body features, voice features already, like you have facial expression and non-verbal communication that we'll see. It's a base behavior that we'll see later. It's like when you see somebody angry, you see it in his face. When somebody is angry, you see it on his face, and it's important to consider that. It's something that is very much used in transmission. That's how we communicate. So to get those clues is very essential. So here we simply collect them, voice features, e.g. clothes and accessories. Can tell about the person's status, person's wealth, what he's been doing in the last hour, and so on. Related natural resources, materials, living elements, systems, which car he's driving, and so on, which home he's living in, and then related process, families, and so on. And any other related event, there are specific ones, as we'll see in base behaviors. So all these can help. It's all the clues that we gather. We look at an event, look at the entire appearance of a person. The source will look at the entire appearance of the audience, and inversely, so that they somehow consider each other and try and figure out where in their life they are. So here, life model understanding. So agents make decisions and actions according to their own lives, and as assumed as ultimate goal in the previous videos, each agent seeks to deliver his own value, with value defined as sum of pleasure minus sum of pain. So in the case of transmission, they also consider each other, the source and audience, and these decision actions may impact the transmission. That's where, in a very biased way, that's where we want to try and figure out the true from the wrong. For example, a company representative talking about his product service will always be positive, hiding the defects. You can't rely on just the company to know about whether this product is good for you or not. Same talking to a kid may, for example, a kid looking for knowledge may go and talk to everybody to try and understand life, but ultimately he will only get life explained to a kid and not the true life, because everybody will systematically adapt to him being a kid, and they will all avoid any adult topics. So here that's one examples of understanding that we need to account for. And for a single transmission event, there are actually 4 life models, not just one. 4 life models that are playing a role. The source's life as believed by the source, the audience's life as believed by the audience, and the cross cases, which is the audience's life as believed by the source, and the source's life as believed by the audience. The 4 of them are different, even though they refer to the two same lives. They are different, and this difference may be confusing, may raise confusion in the occurrence of events, and ultimately in the transmission event itself. So here, given a goal, adaptation to these 4 models may occur, but the adaptation approach is the same for each case. So we're just gonna review one, and this one will be reviewed in even more detail that we've done before, because I really I will try to do it. Even for myself it's hard. I will try to do it in detail to see how many cases are possible in some of the simplest situations of life. So let's assume, for example, source as reviewed by the source, and it's the same for the 3 other cases. He may be that source may be only looking in his head right now, only looking for pleasure and pain, for pleasure or pain avoidance, and we're gonna go over each so that you get the idea of what actions he may do. So here, basically, his goal is each agent targets his or her own pleasure and pain goal. If we consider the pain pleasure of beneficial and detrimental view, sound, smell, taste. So here, to reach this goal, he's gonna make specific actions that are detectable through the related events, through the gathered related events that we mentioned before. So wear nice clothes, sing, put perfume on, eat specific food, and the opposite, the detrimental, you have a surprised look at somebody carrying like I don't know, a hole in his trousers and so on. Request silence to a person singing, move away from a person, a smelly person, or refuse to eat some food. Just in case of actions, typical actions. Same hunger, thirst, tiredness, sickness, injury. So here, eat, drink, sleep, rest, heal. No, eat specific food, turn down activity, intoxication, consume intoxicant, no, eat specific food. Sexuality, plan workload, prepare for marriage, decrease time with friends, and so on. Hope, fear, anger, remorse, joy, all the emotions here. Rest, communicate with others, request silence, and you start to see that some actions are similar, and it's voluntary. Superiority, inferiority, repetitively mention superior event or distract from inferior event. So here, in itself, a filter immediately, and a filter is no good with transmission. It's really no good. Scarcity, look for specific object, refuse sell, offer, take a picture. Skills and achievement creation, repeat your own skill, recognize somebody that is a beginner and name him as a beginner. Empathy, contribute to alleviate negative value, any action here. Envy, align with observed value, contribute to deliver negative value. Consistency, inconsistency, do anything usual, repel the unusual. Compliment, critic, over compliment, avoid hurting critic. That's the example we saw above when the person did not say the truth because he didn't want to hurt his brother, while the brother would have much liked to have that truth at this moment to prevent the losses down the stream. So liking, disliking, filtering out, liked, disliked events, objects, agents. Like you were close to like typically. Reciprocity, vengeance, payback, favor, take revenge. So here it's straightforward. Inequality, oppose any believed unequal event. Conformism, non-conformism, conform to the believed prevailing group, avoid non-conformism. So it's basically the definition, because it's like it is. It will really depend on whatever country you are from. I don't want to come up with specific examples. Love, jealousy, dedicate time and resources to loved ones, over control in case of jealousy. Save, lose time, so here take shortcuts, intentionally act with high speed but lower quality of the action. Save, lose energy, take shortcuts, again intentionally act with less tiring options. Save, lose wealth, save money, bargain, dedicate time and energy to generate revenue. God or super agent relationship, so here do actions according to the religion or to the ideology you have. So all these are actions that occurs, that are visible through the related event, and from which we try and assume and understand what's going on in the situation before we can understand typically why a transmission has been done. So same, next element is capacity. So here in general, we're going to go fast, but in general each agent does what she can. So you can't expect somebody from doing anything which is outside his ability. So here, anything feasible with the body, avoid action without body capacity, improve body capacity. Same, to have system access, to have the process access, to have the skill to use a system or fill a role of a process. So here it's more like all the technical skills. It's even more relevant today than before. To have the capacity to, here the people who haven't seen this yet, but to have the capacity to receive some pain or pleasure without losing, without being too disrupted in your life, having the capacity to provide the opposite, the pleasure or pain. Same for beliefs, capacity for beliefs. So here it's really capacity related. It's something we haven't seen yet, but it will be capacity to related to each step of the belief acquisition step, capacity to validate beliefs, capacity to in general, capacity to capacity to go analyze observations. So here, ignore agent not capable of understanding an observation or system, prevent learning, and so on. Same for the others. I think transmission validation, ignore statement for person not aware of the transmission's clues, and the person, if somebody cannot validate something, you will typically ignore him or focus on the one that can. So analysis, correct understanding, good memory, correct adaptation and execution. It's all the same message. Then comes beliefs. So here each agent does what she believes in. So here is all the historical beliefs you have accumulated, acquired throughout your life. So all the direct observations you have, all these will drive. You may the person may be focused on improving one of those. So he will directly observe an event, ignore some others. Or indirectly observe an event, question a person, analyze a situation, summarize a situation, memorize things, adapt to a new situation, execute some actions just to check your belief, just a simulation, and it may be, of course, interpreted as a true action, and it may lead to confusion, but that's the point. Then comes the steps we haven't done yet, but I'm gonna cover them quickly. Base behaviors. So here it's each agent is influenced by his base behaviors, consciously or not. So according to your maturity, you go do things of your age. Specialization, you do things you are specialized in, usually. Habits, you repeat the habits, oppose the unusual, and you abide by all your body's requirements. And we'll see that there are plenty of others, but for now it's sufficient to get the idea. Decisions, same, you follow. So here each agent makes decisions that commits him, bias him or her. So here the intent, the attachment, the motivation, we'll see that later. But anything actions you do, you will do actions according to your own intent, continue them or do them at the level of your motivation. You will tend also to embellish your own positions, which may also lead to many confusion. Then comes the other steps. So here the remaining 4 steps are actually special cases of capacity, pleasure and pain and beliefs, but since they fail and succeed differently, since they have a very specific pattern, I separate them from the 4. That's in the life model. I separate them from the 4, and you will see why when we cover them. It's really a change of mindset in a single life, in the life of a person. So problem solving, you have an intent, you want to do it in a specific way, optimize something, align actions with own. So you will align your actions with that criterion, that objective you select for yourself. You will also apply only solutions you know, or solution you can derive yourself. Then comes action execution. So here is really when you do an action, verify. You want it to match the plan you have before, and you want all the capacities that you wanted to implement. You want them to succeed. So to anticipate that action execution, you will do a lot of things. Typically, verify your plan, verify your capacities. And this typically when you try and verify something with somebody, he will think that you don't trust him, and so on, and all these raise confusing matters. Then comes action-related events. So here, efforts, consequences, illusion, opportunities, risks. So here, basically anticipate all the anticipation steps you do to make sure that things are going to happen according to your own plan. So you're going to make a lot of actions here: question, anticipate consequences, deceive or simulate an action, focus on opportunities, question likelihood, avoid risk, question likelihood of that risk happening, and so on. And then comes the last one, satisfaction. So here, purpose of life. So a specific kind of goal, of pleasure and pain goal, which is the purpose of life. And so here you will naturally follow your own purpose of life. So if you are in a situation required to do an action that is forbidden in your purpose of life, it will cause some confusion to the situation that needs to be clarified. Same good, evil characterization, judgment, and so on. So all these steps are just one adaptation, one person. So source for the source as believed by the source as believed by the audience as believed by the audience, and audience as believed by the source. Each 4 times this table with different actions that are done, and when we list out all that is happening, we can note that as I mentioned, some actions are the same, some are actually opposed to each other, and some are. So what are the same? They will be confusing to understand, and some are supporting each other, some are opposing each other. So 3 cases are even more complicated. For example, when an event supports another, for example, complementing the skills of a person who executed your intent. Here, because the person has helped you progress in your decision, you complement his skills, so you increase his you give him a pleasure of skill recognition. But that skill recognition as a transmission is not reliable because you just did something, so you have to basically ignore that compliment. That's what I call support, when when goals of different people tends to match. They will support each other. They may support each other, and you want to ignore this kind of support for transmission if you want the strongly true transmission. Rest and silence for any reason. Yes, rest and silence. Yeah, always go together. Opposition to an event. Here it's the opposite, and here work versus rest balance. You want money, but you also get tired. So at some point, these two will enter into conflict. So you have to. It's a specific situation where you have to do something here. We have to be careful here with the transmission in this kind of opposition. Same for price negotiation. All the money, all the price, all the decrease in price all the decrease of the selling price is money lost by the seller to the buyer, and inversely. So it's really what I win you lose, what I lose you win, and there's no way around it. It's pure opposition. So here in these kind of cases, of course, all that you will hear, all the arguments have to be taken very carefully, as we will be very far from any strong truth. Telling the truth versus not hurting a person, that's the example we show. And of course there are also events that are neutral to each other, from each other. Avoid bad smell versus improving skills. There are apparently no link between them, and these are good because there won't be any adaptation. There will typically be no adaptation between the goals. So here, with these supports and oppositions, people will tend to behave in different ways to kind of resolve them. So for oppositions, people can do a compromise, to trade off on the opposition of two values, can cooperate typically in supports to align actions and have to each deliver his goals. There's a few differences, but it doesn't matter. Substitution. So here you want to do something, you want to truly do something, but since you can't, something prevents you will do something else in its place. So here, by default, you are bounded to do something that is not matching your beliefs, and thus the transmission in itself will be not realistic, not like a true version of yourself. Competition. So here, actions to deliver one's value. It can be constructive when you work harder to compete with others, or to prevent the other value from being delivered. So here, destructive. Those are also cases that are dangerous for transmission. Accommodation is where you give up a value for somebody else, and that one as well is a misrepresentation of reality. And the world, of course, especially the environments, make things change. So all this, even though at some point there's a solution, it may change as all the positioning may shift, and as people's life changes, and we gotta have the best, latest version, latest understanding of the matter. Later we'll see also that strength and weakness of a position are important here, but it's covered in the chapter on decision, as there are some subtlety on it. Now that we have the goals, we have identified the supports and opposition, we have considered how people are resolving them. There's still the last step. People are going to make actions, and here on the action stage, on choosing a specific action, It can be any action from all the listed capacities, so all the body, all the system, all the processes. There are so many capacities that one may call on. However, they can be simplified in a list. We can simplify them in a sub-list, like categories: exchange of values, substitution, instruction, use of constraint, ignore things by patients, call for help from other people, just to put everything in a bin. And this task is actually hard, but I will do it to make things simple later in the chapter on action. So predicting an action is really impossible here at this stage. So we can only approximate what will be the next move by looking at historical averages. Typically, what I mean by that is a person is doing the action he's used to do, or we can analyze a posteriori what happened and see why a person did something in a specific way. But on the action stage, choosing an action step, we really can't do much to infer, to get a good idea of why transmission would be true or not. So it's really a hidden, complex step. Just as a note, summarizing here the entire range of possible actions into an efficient small subset is really not apparent. We'll never agree on this. However, the religion seems to provide a design solution for this, but we'll see that later, inshallah. So now that we have understood, we have covered the life models of everything, of all the agents, source and audience. We have their positioning, their resolution, their actions, and now comes the time to decide on this transmission. Should we trust it or not? So one of the usual first step is to get as much information as possible to ensure the right understanding is obtained. As I mentioned, there's so many things that can happen: correct pleasure and pain goal, capacity assessment, belief, intent, resolution approach, action related event, and so on. In particular, the correct positioning and support to positions, resolutions must be identified. And also a good way is to also check alternative sources to try and kind of find a way to avoid all these adaptation challenges. So how do once we have as many information as we have as we collected, how do we correct our transmission? So as much as possible, we will focus on the neutral transmissions. We don't want any stakes. We don't want people supporting or opposing a statement because they are going to mess things up. We can cancel out or ignore some of the transmissions of the oppositions, so they would just do as if they were not here, or downgrade or ignore some supports. Maybe a compliment is not that strong. You look at the fact behind, again, the observation behind the compliment instead of just taking things at their face value. And for the supports and oppositions resolutions, depending on the type, so compromised transmission, uncompromised position is to ignore, except if you have the ideal goal of the people at first place. Collaboration, cooperation, transmission between collaborators to ignore if correlated to cooperation activities. Two partners will typically, for example, two partners will not criticize each other as there's too many stakes to it. Substitution, transmission on second choices. Transmission and second choice is not representative of the true belief. So here a choice have already been made to adapt and make something that they don't believe in. Then the source doesn't believe in it. It's himself. So why would we believe? Why would you believe in it as a witness? So here seek the targeted position prior to resolution. In terms of competition, so here we may as well simply ignore. Competition is very hard to assess, to kind of correct. And as for accommodation, it's the same. Transmission on the second choice. The second choice to ignore a value and do nothing. So here seek the targeted position prior to the resolution. With this, we have at least a better transmission, a better representation of the reality. Just as a note, I don't want to go too much into detail. What would be the best approach to get the strongest transmission possible. So here you can seek a competent support. So by competent, I mean he has the good capacity across all the required events to verify that transmission statement from nothingness. So for all the elements of that transmission, he gather all the capacities for it. So that's the competent support. On the opposite side, seek a competent opposition and look at his arguments to see if he's gonna come up with solid evidence that something is wrong. The third one is very important. I use the usual expression skin in the game. The people that put at stake their most important target goals and the assumption that the transmission statement is true, those people are the best for any transmission, since they already put so much. The more value, the more things they risk for that transmission to be true, the more they believe in it, and the more likely you are to believe. The more chance it is true. It will be true. At least if it's a strong truth in the origin, he will definitely share a strong truth if he has a lot to lose. So, for example, on the example of the new product, you can control, instead of asking for a qualitative review of your new product, new business idea, you can check if a person is actually ready to buy it or not, and that is much more restrictive. Next solution is multiple independent sources. I briefly mentioned it, but here, if we can get the same transmission from as many people, we kind of limit the risk of any corrupted transmission, any adaptation. However, the steps that we mentioned, still must be carried out as there are many common influences that may still add an adaptation to that transmission, especially with national conformism, this kind of trends that even you see many people, but they are all from this kind of same environment, so they will all tell you the kind of the same story, and this can hide an interest behind. Next, look for independent transmission rather than any agents involved in support and opposition resolution. Those are really disrupting everything, making the transmission just business as usual, and there's no attempt at getting a strong truth. So really, independent transmission is way better than any conflict. Now, all that said, can we get a strong truth by transmission? So the rationale is, it's good to question the rationale here. How do an agent get to claim that a statement will occur or not, which is our definition of strong truth? Here there are different sources. It may be an observation, and here we share the same limits. You share the same limits as observations, so it can't be a strong truth, as we saw observations are not sufficient. It can be an invention, somebody just willingly or not, somebody made up a new statement out of nowhere, or misunderstood the situation so that he come up with something that did not happen. So here there is no justification to be a strong truth. So it basically has the same value as the message event space that we saw before. So here we ignore them. Any invention, we will ignore them. So it's fundamental. I put this as a fundamental assumption: unjustified inventions ignored, but there is actually something to be said here in the religion space, but it's for later. So here, not a strong truth. Transmission from others. Here the same question applies. You can re-question: why would another person know more? Why would the person that told you know that a statement will occur or not? And repeat until you get the original source. That is not a transmission. So we refer to the other cases. It may be an observation, it may be an invention, it may be the other ones. So next one is existing beliefs, but it never stops at the transmission. Existing beliefs. So here you can repeat the investigation of the process of belief acquisition and use for that existing belief until the other sources are reached. So here, beliefs alone, they're always based on something ultimately. So if the source of a belief is a belief, you go to that belief and check the source again until you get the original sources, which should be in any of the other cases. And finally, the last one is transmission from special agents. So here, by special agent, I mean gods, prophets, any mystic transmissions. So here it's not in the apparent, we ignore it for now. So, and there are no other cases possible. There's no other way for a person to come up with a transmission. So all this said, we are left with either as a source, as a true source of knowledge for transmission, only inventions or observations. Observations are not strong truths, inventions are not strong truths. So we can conclude that in the apparent, only observation may justify an occurring statement. And just as a recap, observation statement may occur because they occurred before. That's the rationale for observation. But for any statement, a person has no reason to be more true than another person, except through their link to observations. So since the limits on observations are still valid, and in addition to them you have to figure them out through somebody else, which is a hard task, further incertitude, we can conclude that the transmission statement cannot be a strong truth, excluding the special agents, which are not in the apparent section. We don't have any prophets right now, so we can't consider them in the apparent section. That's it for the transmissions. Just as a side note, one of the big challenges we mentioned at the very beginning of this channel is to not fall into any bias in the way we describe things, and here the systematic use of the life model and the belief acquisition step to address a challenge forces us to cover all aspects of a human life, as the use of single examples is really a guarantee that the personal bias will contribute necessarily. If I come up with simple examples, I will necessarily be talking about something that is correlated to my life, and that I absolutely must avoid, since the statement I will make will be less generalizable to humankind. And in this channel, as we'll see, religions is really global. It's a global phenomenon, and we can't allow any bias to disrupt us. And biases will be covered in base behaviors. So here, one of the main solutions to avoid those biases is to go from structure to structure, model to model, and that's actually a great way to forces you to go over all the questions, to not forget anybody, to not forget anybody's specialty. Typically, in a in a in a in dealing with like defining the human life. And same on a new candidate statement, it's also vital to take a step back, placing that statement in the belief acquisition process and the life models of the entire population. It will allow to get a more representative view of the value of that statement. These are actually something that these models are things that I'm going to be using a lot across the channel. And it's really important to carry the whole thing, even if it's not nice. It's long, it's heavy, it's necessary, but it's necessary. So that's for transmission. So next time we start the analysis steps with the definition, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum.